Hey there, this is the third video and maybe last for regarding how to create a rock formation for your environment. In the last part, what we did is create a low poly mesh. We rendered out view texture maps, ambient occlusion, normals, edge cavities. In this third part, what we should be doing is texturing out our asset in Mudbox in Photoshop and setting it up to be used in Cryengine and UDK. So what we're first going to do is open up Mudbox and import our low poly mesh. So browse all the way to where your rock 01 underscore LP underscore UV mesh has been saved and open this up. So you got the options to set the display to flat lighting. That way it only displays diffuse texture color information without being shaded. Later on we'll see why you want to use this for texturing. It's because sometimes it's easier to just work with a diffuse texture without having any shading being applied to the model. So what we're first going to do here is import all the texture maps that we exported and set them up with different blend modes. So you just go to layers in Paint, you right click and click on import layer. Browse all the way to your rock tutorial folder and open up the renders folder and then start importing the texture maps one by one. I'm starting with the ambient occlusion texture map, and you get a box that opens up and you get the options to set it up to set which channel the ambient occlusion is going to be put in. So in this case we'll just be using the diffuse channel. Okay, so you can see that the ambient occlusion has been loaded. We'll do the same with the other texture maps. You just right click here and hit import layer. We'll import a cavity map. We'll do the same again for the edge highlight map that was rendered in Mudbox. Alright. Now what we need to do is just sort them out. So just enlarge the box a bit, that way you can see the names. So we'll just move the ambient occlusion all the way at the top. Cavity is going to be just under it. Set the ambient occlusion to multiply. Same goes for the cavity map. The edge highlight map will be set to linear dodge, and you should be getting this sort of result. Now what we're going to do is grab a photo source rock texture from CZ Textures. So for those who don't know what this website is about, it is actually one of the best websites where you can find your source textures. It's a huge database of photo source textures, and some of them are tileable, and this is really the best if you're trying to find some base material to work with. So you'll go to cgtextures.com and go to rock, and we're probably going to use a sediment type of rock. In my case, I'm just going to use the first one here. So just click on it, and you could use the one that you like the most. I'm just going to use this one here and save this one here by right clicking and save as. And I'll put this in the rock tutorials folder, and I'll create a new folder here and name it textures. Save. Now I'll just go to the rock tutorial folder and browse all the way to the textures. I'm just gonna wait until it's finished downloading. There we go, and open it up in Photoshop. Now since we're working on a 2048 texture, we probably want to resize this as a 2048 first. And save it as a TGA. Okay. Now once you're done saving your base texture, you just import it here and put it all the way at the bottom of these 3 layers. Make sure that it is a TGA that you're selecting, and save it as open it up as a diffuse. Alright. Now next thing you want to do is browse again to go to image browser tab here and browse all the way where you save the texture. And I'll probably you probably want to use the source texture, which is at a higher resolution, the one that you downloaded from cgtexture.com. So instead of using the TGA, you could just use the JPEG version. So I'll just click here on the texture folder and click on choose. And for some reason the icons here disappeared. Just try to quickly figure out what's the issue. Alright, there it is. This one is the 2048 by 2048, which has been resized, and this one is the 3K, 3.5K by 3.5K that we're going to use. So you just select it and hit on the set stencil. And once you set it as a stencil, you want to check the use tiles and hit on projection tool. Need to go back again and reset it as stencil. While having projection tool selected, select your texture, set it as a stencil. Then go back to your 3D view, and you should get this kind of window, this kind of texture showing up. Now, so check the box use tiles. That way you get a full tileable texture preview. And then what you could do is you could also tweak this slider if you want to, the visibility slider if you want to change it to your taste. Okay, now view shortcuts that you need to keep in mind. While hitting S, well, it's over here anyways, there's a box. While hitting S and right clicking, you'll have the ability to zoom in and zoom out. Middle mouse for panning, and left clicking will allow you to rotate the texture around. Now if I click again on projection, it will open up the options for the projection tool, the paint projection tool. Make sure that the color is set all the way to white and the strength to 100. I'm just going to turn off stamping and make sure that stamping is off. Now if I open up the fall off tab, you could turn off, you probably want to turn on this fall off based on facing angle. Now if you read the description, this will reduce the stretching when you do projection painting. It will use the stretching on the edges which are at a certain angle, which means that when you do a brush stroke, it will clamp itself and it won't paint on what's at a certain angle. So turn this on, and this will definitely help you out later on when you paint with the projection tool. Just use the default values, it should be fine. Okay, so the goal here is to first of all have a uniform looking color texture and seamless. You wanna these sediment line, these cracks to be all lined up perfectly and seamlessly. So what you want to do is first make sure that this layer here is all the way at the bottom. So you just click on it and move it all the way down. There you go. That way you have the edge highlight showing up, as you can see here. Scale a brush and just do view brush. Try test out the view brush strokes to see if your brush is working properly. All you gotta do now is just rotate and paint really quickly, and then we can refine later on the edges and the detail once we zoom in. Just to get a flow of the rock and the sediment flow. When I was saying that it is always good to turn on the fall off based on facing angle, this is to try to limit as much as you can this kind of artifact that might show up. So that's how useful it is. Without it, I'll probably have lots of these stretching going on. Alright, now once you're done like generally putting down the erosion flows and having them like kinda all at least be fit almost perfectly, you can start refining some of the detail and zoom in a bit and start projecting and fixing some of the seams and detail. And what's good about this technique is that technically you'll have a seamless color map that looks really great on this kind of asset. Instead of just using a tileable texture all the way at the bottom here and not doing any modifications. And you also get direct feedback of whatever changes you do on a color texture instead of just doing it on Photoshop. It's always good also to experiment with different photo source raw textures and see if you can get different results just by creating a new layer and pinning down another layer of color information to see if you can get better results. got a texture that looks too blurred out in some areas, don't hesitate to scale down the stencil and get some extra definition. Always try out with different parts and see which one looks the best on your rock and which one looks the most natural. Try sometimes also to use these cracks on the texture at your advantage. For example, I could like paint down this crack area here and have it like fit naturally with the underlying the one that comes at the bottom here. Because what we're going to do later on is use this color texture here and open it up in CrazyBump and render out a detailed texture normal map to be overlaid on the original texture which we got from from Xnormal. Another good thing about using Mudbox for texturing your assets is that you have the ability to import your normal map that you made that you rendered from Xnormal and preview due to texturing. Oops, I imported this into the diffuse channel. Due to texturing while having the normal map showing up at the same time. So you just do the same process, right click here on this box, import, and instead of using this diffuse channel, you just select normal map, press on OK, and then turn off flat lighting. And you probably want to use a material that doesn't have any specularity applied to it. So I'll just use maybe this one here, guess so, and try out with different light settings to get something that looks a bit more natural and better, and have a better idea of where the volumes are. And you can easily turn off this the diffuse texture, and you can just see the normal map, because I don't think that I've showed you the normal map result on the low poly mesh, and apparently it's almost, I would say, a flawless bake, perfectly clean, no artifacts showing up, no missed rays. The ray distance calculation did a pretty good job in this case, I think. If I turn on wireframe, there we go. Always trying to refine these crack lines which are very important and very pronounced in this texture here. So make sure that they all lined up perfectly if you can. Best way to do this is to zoom in and try to paint these cracks while rotating your low poly mesh around. This will really help with the consistency of the rock asset, because instead of having just some random rocks put together, this will actually be part of one single huge rock formation, and once you put them together and duplicate them, you can align these sediments next to each other and will really look conformed, as if it was all, when you put multiple rocks together, it'll look as if it was all one huge rock formation, and it'll break up the feel that it is actually multiple models that are being placed together. Now, if you get a bit of blurring on your texture and you're thinking about the textile density and you're afraid it wouldn't look that great when you bring the asset in the game engine after finishing doing the fuse texture, well, don't worry about it at this point, because what we're going to do later on is downsize this whole texture, because this is a 2048 by 2048 texture, so we're going to downsize it to a 1024 by 1024, because in my opinion, using a 2048 by 2048 texture for chest and asset is a bit overkill, and this is really like gonna be too much for to use on a such a simple asset. So if you bring it inside the engine, the smartest thing that you might want to do is probably add in a bit of vertex blending if you want to add in some detail, or just put down turn on the detail bump mapping in UDK or Cryengine. Okay, so I'm gonna pause the video here. Um, as I'm guessing that you pretty much know what's gonna happen in the next 15 to 20 minutes. All you gotta do is just use the same style and make sure to fix all these blurry parts and refine the texture a bit and fix the cracks to make them like kind of fit all together correctly. And we'll be back once the whole color texture is done, and then we'll start moving on to the next steps. All right. Okay. Now that we're done, like refining the color texture, all I did is just clean up some edges and make sure that there aren't any stretching parts on my color map. Um, what we could do is just to have a nice preview of the color texture. We could like bump up the ambient occlusion by changing the value to 150. Same goes for the cavity and edge highlights. But this is not the final changes. Once we start putting together all these texture maps in Photoshop, where we will have a bit more of control. We can like change the hue of the color map and maybe darken it a bit more to have this, for example, to have the edge highlight map be more pronounced on the diffuse texture. We can preview and see if there are any errors before we export the color map. But I think this is pretty good. I spent around maybe 20 minutes um, refining and cleaning up the color map. Okay, now all we have to do is select the rock sediments and export this. Export selected. And go to your work folder, your rock tutorials, and put this in the renders folder. We'll save it as a TGA and we'll name it rock underscore 01 underscore color. Alright. Now we're going to check out the color texture that we just made in Mudbox. This is what you should get. Okay. Now that we have this texture, color texture done, we're gonna run this through a filter to generate a normal map in CrazyBump. So first, what you want to do is just select all, Control A, copy, Control C, and open up CrazyBump. And paste photograph from clipboard. Ah, crashed. Sometimes it happens. Okay, so it gives you the choice of selecting one of the shapes, which is based on an algorithm that tries to guess the volume on your color texture. So it just shows the first one. And I'll be right back. I need to answer the door. Okay, so well, first you're gonna get a window. So you get a window that opens up. Now you get a 3D preview here where you can just directly preview the normal map. And we'll just try and tweak view settings and see if we can get a good detail map that brings out the volume without breaking out, without messing too much with the original normal map. So we probably want to turn down a bit the shape recognition to around 25. Okay, and increase the sharpness to get some nice hard edges on your detail texture to around 60. Turn down the very large slider. This is to capture the large detail on your normal map. And once you kind of, and you can get see in the preview, you get something really nice that could be very good for a detail map. We could probably increase the strength just a tiny bit to around 60. Get some of that extra volume. Okay. Now, before we do a copy of the normal map we have here, we probably want to check the options, the preferences, and make sure that the normal map y-axis is set to up, which means this is y is going to be positive instead of having a negative y. You're going to get RGB, and the G channel is going to be up for the normal map. If it was down, this is for UDK Cryengine. If it was up, this is to have the normal map is set up to be exported for Maya and other 3D packages. And since our normal maps have been rendered in Mudbox and in Xnormal with Y set to plus, you want to set this to up. Hit done. Now copy normals to clipboard. Go to Photoshop, create a new document, and paste your normal map, your detail normal map over here. So we're just going to save this detail normal map because it can always be reusable later on. If you want to do some changes, you're still going to have the original normals, then you have the detail that's going to be overlaid, and you're going to have a final one that has the original normal and the overlaying happening from the detail normal map. So we'll just name this normals underscore detail and save this as a TGA. And really, CrazyBump did a good job capturing all the cracks, as you can see from this detail texture. I think it's gonna look good on the final normal map. Okay, we're gonna open up the normal map that we got from that was rendered from Xnormal, and you're gonna select all and copy. Go back to CrazyBump and click on the open icon and paste normal from clipboard. What we're going to do here is going to merge the two normal maps together. We can do this in Photoshop, and we can do this in CrazyBump. I like doing it in CrazyBump because I have control with some sliders and I can have some extra settings. And for those who use a different application such as Endo, this whole step is can be done in Endo as well if you use the plugin in Photoshop. Now what we're going to do, we're going to open up the detail normal map. We're gonna copy as well, Control A, copy. Go back to CrazyBump and go to normal map mixer, add another normal map and select normals from clipboard. And this will show you a preview of the two normal maps blended together. We could also load the mesh, the rock mesh, and preview this directly and see how it's going to look. So what we gotta do is go to box here, click on the this icon here, load mesh, and browse all the way to where your rock model has been saved. So rock, the UV version, of course, open it up, and you have a direct preview of the normal map. If you want to push this a little bit, you could also load up your diffuse texture if it was done already. You just go to diffuse tab and load texture from pass from clipboard or open from file. Now you got the ability to tweak the strength of the detail map that you just added and the original map if you want to. If you want the detail map to be like much stronger, you can bump this slider up. But we want this to be a bit subtle, not too strong, so we probably want to use not too strong value, maybe around 30. But if this is not enough, we can always come back to CrazyBump and redo the same process and see which settings works best. Try to bump up a bit the slider for the original map, even though it's not, you shouldn't really do this, but sometimes it can help you uh, get some extra strength on your original normals. But really, this could give you, could lead you to some extra problems, such as um, seams being more pronounced on the normal map. We're gonna try out this normal map and see how it looks in Mudbox, and then later on, if there are any changes, we can always bring this to the engine and see how it looks. But because it is also good to, when you're doing this whole texturing process, preview your asset in the engine, UDK or Cryengine, and preview your texture, your diffuse texture in normal map directly inside the engine if you want to do some polishing on your asset. So we're just going to copy normals to clipboard, go back to Photoshop, create a new document, paste it, and save this as a TGA, and we'll save it as a rock underscore 01 underscore normals underscore final, and save it. Okay. Could probably preview this in Mudbox and see how it looks. We'll just import it. Just click on normal map tab here, right click on it and hit import layer, and find your final normals, open it up and make sure that it is in the normal map channel and press on OK. Alright, this is how it looks. We're very close to the final result, but we haven't really tweaked the diffuse texture yet in Photoshop, just as fixing a bit the brightness of the color map, which is, I think, is a bit too white or a bit too bright in my opinion. So what we're going to do now is put together these textures here, remake this whole setup that we made in Photoshop. We can close this. Same goes for detail and the original normal map. Let the color map opened. Close this as well. And this. So we'll going to the folders where we put all the textures and open up these the occlusion, the edge, and the cavity. We'll just do the exact setup that we did in Mudbox. So this is the edge highlight map. Set it up as linear dodge add. Close this. This is the cavity. Copy. Paste here. Set it up as a multiply. Make sure to put the names. That way it's easier to find the layers that you want to work with. And this is ambient occlusion. We'll pass this and set it up to multiply blending mode. Now, if you really don't wanna have this white here showing up and have instead have this kind of rock showing up, it might help you. Well, remember that Xnormal renders its texture maps and stores in a mask texture in its alpha channel. When I look into the alpha channel here on the normal map, you'll find an alpha map here that you could use to mask out some areas if you want. Well, we're just going to copy this alpha map and go back to our diffuse texture that we're working on and use it as a mask. Here for the edge highlight map, because this is actually the edge highlight map that's adding all this white here. So create a mask texture by clicking here, go to channels, select here and paste your mask. I'll delete this mask texture, this alpha map that's not going to be useful anyways. Alright, now we probably want to create an effects layer to tweak the hue and brightness of the texture if you want. So I'm just going to create a brightness contrast layer. I probably want to lower down the brightness if you want. Well, since the goal here is to make this texture, this rock model kind of fit with my environment, my setup in the Cryengine. So I have a specific setup that I'm using for having the brightness to fit correctly with the texture that I'm using in my level. So I'm just going to open up my level and make sure that the brightness fits correctly with the rocks that are in my environment. So I'm just going to open up the editor. And open up one of the previous texture that I made for a different rock model. This is the one. Photoshop documents. Well, one of the things you could do is you could use the color match operation if you want to have two rock textures like have somehow the same color information and the same brightness if you want. So just turn off these layers. And open up the diffuse texture of the other rock model that you made previously. And as you can see, this one is using the color information from the original texture that we got from CG Textures. Well, this one has been processed. Unfortunately, it didn't save the modification layers such as brightness and levels. So a good way of doing this, we could either try and manually do this by recreating layers and try to fit this with this layer here and fit the brightness, or we could try out do image adjustment and do match color operation and find the source here. The source is the rock big underscore 02 color. So is this, and it will automatically match the colors and brightness. This is very useful if you want to have a certain consistency with the colors and brightness for the textures that you have in your level. Alright, so if you want to bump up the edge highlight here, what we could do is just duplicate this layer by holding Control, Alt, and drag while selecting the layer. And you can bump it up, and we could probably want to lower down the opacity by around 50% if you want. But there's another thing that you need to keep in mind. If you remember correctly, we did render out, we did generate an edge highlight and cavity map from CrazyBump that I didn't show you how you could use it. and we didn't use it all actually, so I forgot to do it. So you could see the difference. We'll just bring in this texture here. This is the one that we got, which was generated from a normal map. We'll just bring it in as a layer on your diffuse texture. You can turn off the edge highlight here and the cavity generated from Xnormal, and we pass this here and use this as an overlay to see the difference. Now, when you zoom in, you can see that it's really blurred out and really doesn't help. This is one of the problems with the one that you get from CrazyBump. This is really good if you're planning to downsize the texture anyways. And this is the result from render texture maps. So it all comes up to you, and your personal preferences, and see which one looks the best for you. You could probably do a combination of both if you want. Lower down the opacity of this one to get some extra detail, or you can just tweak in the levels on this one, or run it through sharpen filter if you want, and lower down the Gaussian blur on it to get some extra definition. In this case, we probably want to try out a combination of both and see how it looks in the end. I mean, it doesn't hurt. So this is our diffuse texture. Always try to name your layers, that way you know what you're working with. Now we're just going to save this and name it rock_01_D. That's sent for diffuse. We'll leave it here in renders folder and save it as a PSD. That way you still have the original file if you want to come back and do some changes. And we'll save a TGA version as well. Let's preview this in Mudbox. Just turn off these layers and import your diffuse texture that you just saved from Photoshop. Make sure that you're importing the TGA version. Alright, this is what we have. Probably want to bump up the ambient occlusion just a tiny bit, not too much. So we're just gonna make a copy and lower down the opacity on that copy to around maybe 30%. We'll do the same for the cavity. Just gonna bump up the cavity to 200% without doing any changes. So for the AO, once both of these are combined, you got 130%. I'll just resave this as a TGA. Replace. And right click here and hit on refresh selected. So hit flat lighting to see only diffuse texture. Alright, I think that it looks good. I'm not gonna make any spec map for this one. I guess I'm just gonna let the materials and try to use a Xnormal type of specularity and give it a bit of rim lighting in the Cryengine. We'll do this when we get into the Cryengine and see what we can do. I'm just gonna quickly load up my test level for Brittle Lands, and we'll see what we can do from there. Okay. Let's put this down here. We can close CrazyBump. texture has been saved. I'm just gonna save this project here. Maybe I'm gonna put this online. That way you guys can see the file project and try to set it up in your way, the way you want. I'm just gonna make sure to name this final. That way, gonna make the difference. This is gonna name as color. There you go. And save this as in the rock tutorial folder, rock underscore 01 texturing underscore mud for Mudbox. Okay, I guess we can close Mudbox. Alright, what we're first going to do here is save these textures to be rendered in Cryengine. In order to do that, you first need to install the Crytif plugin that comes with the SDK. Now, you probably wanna Google out or just check out YouTube, because you can find some tutorials for that, just for grabbing your Crytif plugin to export these textures in a readable format. And there is a whole installation walkthrough that you can find on YouTube just by typing Crytif, and you can they usually explain to you where you can find the plugin and install it and have it work in Photoshop. Anyways, I'm just gonna close all the texture maps and keep only what I need, what's going to be exported to the Cryengine. So my diffuse texture and the final normal map. So we're first going to start by setting up the normal maps to be exported to Cryengine. First, what you need to do is open up your normal map, go to channels, and invert the green channel. Visually, you could really easily recognize a normal map that has its green channel turned to white minus. Usually, the green will come from the bottom. You can see here, you can kind of guess that the green is coming from the bottom. When you look at the cracks, think of it as spotlights with green, and it's projecting the green light from the bottom. And if this is set up to run for Maya, if you re-invert this, the green will be coming up from the top. When you zoom in, you look at a crack here, you got a green coming from the top. Now, just invert your green channel on your final normal map, and we're just going to save this as a Crytif, as a TIF format readable by the Cryengine. So browse all the way to your Cryengine directory. My case is in where your Cryengine SDK has been installed. So you open up your Cryengine folder. It's going to be set up in this way, and go to Game, Textures, and I'm just going to save this in a custom folder, and I'm just going to put this in rocks. So probably going to name this rock big to just fit with all the rock models that I have. You can name this to whatever you want, but make sure that you have an underscore DDN at the end. So rockbeg04 underscore DDN, direct, that stands for direct draw normal. This is something that comes with direct DDS format, readable by game engines. So make sure that you have an underscore DDN, that way when the Cryengine loads up the texture, it will automatically convert this into a DDS format, and then it will know that it is a normal map. As you can see here, all the other normal maps that I've saved have an underscore DDN at the end. So save this, and you'll get a box that opens up. So you got view presets here. You can change this to normal map high quality here, normal map underscore high Q, And you get the ability to choose the resolution, because usually the plugin downsizes by default your textures if they are at over 1024 by 2024. In this case, I'm working with 2048 by 2048, as you can see here, and it automatically downsizes it to optimize it for real-time purposes. If you really want to work, if you really want to have 2048 by 2048 texture in the game engine, you can just head here, select PC, and change resolution, and select here -1, and it will save it as a 2048 by 2048 for the game engine. So I'm just going to use this, that way we can take a look at the texture in fullest quality in the game engine. So once you're done doing these changes, just click on OK. And we're going to do the same for the diffuse texture over here. So we're just gonna Control-Shift-S to save as, and select Crytek plugin, and do the same, browse to where you save the Cryengine SDK in your games folder, textures, and this one is the wrong one. Save it in the same folder where you saved the normal map. In this case, I'll just name it rock_big_04_D. You can name it to whatever you want, _diffuse or color. This is not a problem. Oops. And this time we'll save it as a diffuse high quality. We'll do the same here. Choose PC, change resolution 2048 by 2048, and hit OK. Alright. Now what's left here is to reopen our rock model in Maya and set it up to be exported for Cryengine. So I'm first going to do a test export without exporting the LODs and exporting the collisions, and then once we're happy with the result visually inside, we'll start doing the technical part where we'll have to generate level of details and collisions. Now open up Maya or your favorite 3D package and import your low poly model. The OBJ here, LPUV'd. Import this, turn on shaded polys. We're going to first assign this a new material. So assign new material, a Fong material, or a Fong material if we're working on 3D Studio Max, or in my case I'm just going to assign it as a lumber material. For Maya, you have to make sure that you assign it a new material. Avoid using the default material because the default material doesn't export with a plugin. So always assign it a new material and avoid using Lambert1. So in my case it changed to Lambert3. I'm just going to name this rock, name a material, rock_04_material. Okay, and I'm just going to browse the textures. So go to color here and browse to where I saved the textures in the Cryengine folder. So remember, we exported textures as TEF format in the Cryengine folder. So you need to go all the way there and browse and open up the textures. So first we're going to look for our diffuse texture, which has been saved here in the games folder. Named rock big score diffuse, and it seems we have a problem. I think I didn't pay attention to the naming here, and I have a fourth rock model. No, never mind, it generated, this is the DDS version, the direct draw surface, and we want to open up the TIFF but it doesn't really matter in this case. I mean, both should load up in Maya, but just open up the TIFF version. To see if your texture has been loaded, just turn on textured polygons. We'll do the same for the normals. So you go bump mapping here, file. Make sure you change this to tangent space normals, and go to Files tab and browse for your normal map, which should be here. So if you turn on the high quality, don't worry about the normals not being displayed correctly, because we inverted the grid channel, if you remember, and this is not displayed correctly, I think. Let me see. Yes, this is it is set up to work for Cryengine and EDK, but it won't display properly in Maya. If you want to see how it should look like, you can browse all the way to where you save the Maya version or Mudbox version and see how it looks. So this is the one that we're looking for. There you go. So open up the normal map that you exported as a CryTIFF, as a TIF format, and in your Cryengine folder. So make sure that it is the one that you picked up from your Cryengine folder. That way, when you export your assets, the material that's going to get exported with it is going to find the textures. Okay. So you should get to this result. So and make sure that the naming is done as well. Open up the outliner, select your mesh and make sure to name it as well. So rock _04 mesh. And what you need also to do, if you haven't done that before, you need to install the Maya C3 plugin to export assets to Cryengine. So where you can find this? Well, you can just Google up Maya C3 and it will send you to either CryDev, or you can just find it on the website of the person that created this heavily modified plugin, an enhanced plugin with more options. It's sitecg.com. That's where you're going to find it. So you go to games, I guess on his website. You go to games and my C3, it's over here, click here. And then you could find all the instructions and download the link for installing this plugin. It installs automatically, I guess. You get a .exe and it installs the plugin for whatever version of Maya that you have installed on your computer, which is really good. And then you have some instructions that you want to read to install this button here on your shelf bar if you want. Technically what he says here, just to copy this code here, once you install the plugin and make sure that you're in the Mail tab, and you paste this code and then select it all, and while clicking on the middle mouse, you just drag this on the shelf and it will create a button. And then you have the option to edit the shelf edit. You go to the shelf editor and you can change the icon of this button that you just created. You just go to change image and browse to the icon folder. Which is usually on your in your documents in Maya 2009. Because prefs, icons, and you find the icon over here and you open it up, and then whenever you click, it loads up your MySE3 window. Alright, so after you're done installing the plugin, I mean, it's really easy, very self-explanatory, and just a few clicks and you got it working. You just click on a button here and open up the MySE3 window. Open up the outliner at the same time. So window, outliner. I'm just gonna create a button for this, that way it's easy to open. A shelf, and name your mesh to whatever name that it is planned for you. Once selected, while selecting your mesh, click here, hit on create export node. So what it does is create two groups. One it has export node underscore, and then you get the name of your mesh, and another subgroup which has the name of the mesh and then adds an underscore group. You can do this manually if you don't wanna use the export node, or if you're using the official plugin that comes with the Cryengine. Now once you're done creating a group, you wanna set up the materials for this to be exported with the mesh. So hit on materials, group editor. While selecting your mesh, create group from selected geometry, and name this to whatever you want. I'm just gonna name this to this group rocks group underscore material. Hit OK, and it automatically grabs the material that it is applied to it, defined as a shader here. So once you're done doing this step, just hit close. Also, you want to hit on add attributes while selecting the mesh, export node, add attributes. You're going to have this extra box that opens up. You get the option to export it as a character or animated geometry. You just leave it at geometry.cgf. Vertex colors, check this box if you have any vertex coloring information on your mesh. Let's say, for example, we have two textures and you painted a vertex color where, let's say, red will define where the grass or moss is going to apply, and the rest is going to be for where the rock is going to be shown up. But this is really optional. Well, usually I just leave this on. Doesn't do any problem for me. I mean, it is empty vertex colors. Do not merge nodes. Use this if you have like multiple models placed next to each. Let's say you're making a house model, for example, and you got multiple parts that have been duplicated. Select this if you don't want to merge everything into one single model. That way you can apply multiple materials to your mesh. Okay, once we're done doing this, you just set the export path to your Cryengine folder. So you browse to where your Cryengine SDK has been extracted. Go to Cryengine. In my case, it's Cryengine 339 for the version. Then game, object, custom, and I'll just save this in the rocks folder. Usually, well, on your Cryengine build, most likely you don't have the same folders set up. So if you want to have the same folder set up, you have to create these folders manually by using the Windows Explorer before doing this step here. So I'm just gonna browse all the way to where my model is going to be saved and hit OK. And first, you probably want to do a validate model to make sure that your mesh doesn't have any problems. So once you open this up, it tells you that the scene needs to be saved, and well, you have to save it in order to be able to export this. So we're going to do this. So just save this, and I'm just gonna save this into my rock tutorials folder, rock underscore 01 scene. This is a Maya scene, and save it. Now if I had validate model the error is going to disappear. Now this error message is not really important because in our case here we're exporting a non-animated model, a static model. So you can ignore this error message. Now once you're done setting up the mesh, you can just hit export selected model and it should be done. Now if you go to Cryengine, open up the roll-up bar, open up brush, open up objects, you go to custom rocks, you should find the rock underscore 04 mesh. Bring this in a level. Now sometimes you might have a problem with the materials export for some reason. I don't know if it is a bug or not. To me, randomly the materials worked right from the first try. Sometimes it gives me this sort of material that tells me to replace me material. So if I open up the material editor over here, trying to find a material that's applied to this mesh, while selecting the mesh, hit over here, tells you there's no material actually applied to it for some reason. Well, what you need to do first actually is hit a generate material. That's the step that I've forgotten if you want the materials to be exported with your mesh. So after exporting the selected mesh, or you could first do a generate material, select the mesh and export, and then export selected mesh and hit OK. So we go back to brush, hit reload to refresh, and even like this, even the material the material is not showing up for some reason. So quickly check if the material actually have been exported. As you can see, the actual material has been exported, because if you remember correctly, the rocks underscore group material, if you look here, this is the same naming. So probably trying to do a quick fix for this and select the mesh here, delete this shader that has been automatically added by hitting delete key, and click on the add shader from selected geometry, and generate the material, save your scene and generate the material again. Overwrite and export your selected model again as well. If you go to material editor, custom to where the materials has been exported, should be under objects, custom, rocks, material group. I still haven't created a material, sub-material. So if this doesn't work out, the simple way of doing this is just by duplicating an existing material in the from one of the assets in here in the material editor. So I'm just gonna duplicate one of the materials that I have previously created. I'm just gonna copy one of the rock materials here. And under group here, I'm just going to pass this over here. And browse where you want to save the material. In this case, it is in objects, custom, rocks. And I'm just going to name this rock underscore 04 underscore mat. Save this. Alright. Now that the material have been duplicated, we'll change view settings here. So first what we need to do is find the diffuse texture that has been saved. So we'll just click on the three dots here. And diffuse texture that we're actually looking for is rock underscore big underscore 04 underscore D. Open the TI version. hit OK. Do the same for the bump, which is the normal map. Here it is. Now there's going to be a slight delay for this one because it has to generate the DDS version of the normal map. Alright. I'm just going to remove the detail, that way we can all be on the same page. Turn off detail bump mapping. There we go. Remove this. Also remove this. There we go. You just need to diffuse and normal. Now bring your mesh in a level. While selecting your mesh, click on this icon here, assign item to selected objects, and you should get your texture being displayed correctly. Don't worry if it is too dark in some areas. This is mostly due to the post-processing that I'm using in the level that needs some tweaking. Let's see, it's mostly due to the contrast. As you can see, when you get a bit of light, it looks correctly. So probably want to scale it up a bit. Move this next to the cliff to see how it fits with the texture. Now with a single rock model, this is pretty much the first time, because I'm also discovering at the same time as you guys how this asset looks in the game engine. We could try and examine and see what kind of different rock formations we could do just by duplicating the same rock model and rotating it around, and see how this could actually look if we move this. Scale it up maybe to 10. The spec might be too strong on this one, so looks really glossy, kind of wet, almost plastic. Want to tweak this out. So select your model, click on get item from selected object, and you probably want to turn down the specularity a bit and lower down the glossiness. I mean, unless your environment is kind of wet and there's some rain, you probably want to bump up the spec if you want. Now the rock texture here used on the landscape has an environment map which kind of brightens the overall texture, as you can see. It helps me add a bit of volume in the shaded areas, because usually this kind of volume doesn't appear in the shaded area on the Cryengine. I'm probably going to turn this off, that way you can see that the texture actually almost fits perfectly with the rock model here, and see how it looks. This is the one, I guess. Sometimes it gets a bit buggy. The 3D materials get unloaded, so if you want to avoid this kind of issue, just open up texture tab here and click on the texture button and then close it, then it reloads the texture. Alright, so overall I think the texture kind of fits well, even though I think it's still a little darker than the one that's under it. I'm just gonna open up the material of the rock model and check out view settings. Could probably brighten out just a tiny bit the diffuse texture in Photoshop. Resaved as a corrective. And browse all the way again to where your Cryengine folder is and where you saved the original texture and replace it. It will automatically load up the same settings that you saved the previous texture with. Hit on OK, and you should get a slight delay. The time for the Cryengine to regenerate the DDS version of the texture. Now while it is doing the processing, because it does take some time for 2048 by 2048 texture to be regenerated again as a DDS, I was thinking about creating the LODs and collisions for this mesh. Since visually I think that it is pretty much all good. If you want to add in a detailed texture map, just like in this rock model here, this is using a 1024 by 1024 diffuse texture normal map, which is very low res, next to the landscape texture. It's very simple to do so. I mean, the goal is to grab one noise texture, or you can do this through a noise texture. You can generate this detail texture. It should be tileable, and you could probably like grab a very simple smooth rock texture from cgtextures.com and generate a detail map that's going to be tiled a bunch of times on your rock model. Just grab the one that you like and one that has some nice volume on it in it and kind of fits your rock texture. In my case, I guess I already created one. Let's find this. Go to rocks folder here and see what I have. I think I'm using this one. I mean, a detail normal map texture really isn't that complicated. It's very simple. You just grab a tileable rock texture such as this one, or this one could be good. A good one to generate one from to use it to generate a normal map from it. But I'll just go through the process of creating one for you in this video. So first of all, you probably want to size it down to 512 or 256 if you want. All depends on the budget you're going for. And might want to desaturate this, that way you can have a good sense of the volume that I'm using, that this texture has. Sometimes in some cases you might want to tweak the levels on this texture and try to bring out the volume or remove some of the shadows by going through an adjustment and use the shadow highlight feature, and you could probably remove some of the shadows to flatten out the texture if you want. There's a bunch of adjustments that you want to do, but really you don't really need to spend too much time for such a texture. So we're gonna try out this one here. We're just copy all, select all, copy. We want to do this by using CrazyBump, or I think if you have Xnormal installed, you can just directly generate one in Xnormal. The plugin it gets installed automatically, I guess. Or I'm not sure. Maybe it's hide to normals. Really never use it. I remember using a plugin, the NVIDIA plugin. If you had the NVIDIA plugin, you could use that and generate one directly in Photoshop. But I'm using CrazyBump in this tutorial, so I'll just do this in this way. So we selected the image file, and we're just going to pass this photograph. And if we look at the shape recognition here, it would probably be more interesting to use this one because it actually has kind of look actually like this one here. Use box preview, and we can tile it by hitting the plus key and turn on very large settings. Sharpen out a bit this texture and turn down the shape recognition to maybe around 10, just to see if we can get a good result. Just play around with sliders until you get a good tileable texture. If you want to tile it a bit more, like I said earlier, you got a plus and minus key next to the numbers pad. You can tile it a few times to have a nice preview. If you hit minus, it will zoom back in, go all the way to one by one aspect. Probably want to sharpen this up just a tiny bit more. I mean, this could be pretty good. I mean, for detailed texture, we can try it out. Just copy, create a new file, paste it. Make sure you invert the green channel, that way it works in a Cryengine. And save as a TEF with a TEF plugin. Browse all the way to your Cryengine folder. And save it in the same rocks folder. As you can see, I've already created a previous texture, but I'm just going to create a new one for you. That way you can see how it's set up. So I'm just going to name it rock underscore detail underscore 02 instead of 01 underscore ddn. And save this. And save this as a normal map high quality again. And hit OK. Back to Cryengine. Now we're just going to select the mesh and open up the material editor. Get item from selected object, that way you get the material. And what has it done here? There you go. And what you want to do is first go to detail here in the details tab. You can hit on the 3 dots and browse to your rock underscore detail 02 underscore DNT TIFF. Open this up, and under shader generation parameters, you wanna turn on this box here, detail bump mapping. Hit that, and well, usually it's not very noticeable. But the detail normal map has been actually added, so you probably want to tweak a few sliders, a few settings in your material. So you get a detail bump scale. If you move this, you can see that the bump scale has been increased, and then you get a tiling. You want to increase the tiling a bit. Experiment with different tiling values. Zoom in, that way you can see what's happening. and turn down the scale a bit. So which one fits the best? I mean, it really depends on your asset that you have, that you ended up with. And there you go, it added extra detail in your normal map. This is a really good technique to add extra detail on fairly low resolution textures, just as this one here. I mean, this one has pretty much been set up to work in a way to work on a console. Might turn down the strain a bit and increase the tiling just a tiny bit. Do 0.5, 10, 10. Alright, I think it looks a bit more natural. Scale it up a bit. I mean, there you go. This is how visually it will look in the game engine, and how simple it was to bring it in. I think well, to be honest, the exporting process of assets is much more simpler for UDK, in my opinion. Cryengine, there's like, well, Cryengine you pretty much have to really well set up your asset first in your 3D package to have it work correctly. Maybe in another video tutorial I'll be showing you how to create a tileable texture such as this one. I've been asked multiple times, how do you do to create such a tileable texture? Well, there's really no big secrets about this. If you remember correctly, we did create a high poly mesh for this rock model. The process basically, what I do is just use ZBrush, and I use the 2.5D canvas. Think of it as if you're using Photoshop and you just, instead of painting on a 2D canvas, you're just bringing in high poly meshes and placing them down together, and you get real-time feedback on the where you place the mesh on a tileable texture. You'll end up with a normal map. You can also end up with a displacement map which can be used later on to generate any kind of texture that you want: edge highlights, ambient occlusion, cavities, and etc. In your favorite renderer, because you could export this. You could like use a displacement map on a plane and deform that plane with a displacement map, and have your version of that, a high poly version of the tileable texture, and render out multiple texture maps. So, well, if you want to have a good idea of how it works with ZBrush, there's a free video tutorial that you can find on E3D regarding that, and this is where I pretty much learned how to do it. how to create tileable textures in ZBrush. You just go to free videos here, and there should be there you go, ZBrush tileable texture. Well, the guy does a really good job with the tutorial. I think it's really for intermediate users, but really, I was a beginner when I watched the tutorial. He does this. He goes really fast through the tutorial, so you might not want to pause sometimes, but it is a really good tutorial that might help you create your tileable textures for getting this same kind of tileable texture that I have here in the Cryengine. So what I did, I just reused the high poly meshes that I created for these models and placed them together in ZBrush and created a tileable texture, and pretty much used the exact same texturing process that I used for this for these rock formations. It is as simple as that. And once you're done like creating these large rock formations, well, you could probably go to start creating smaller rocks that you want to scatter around, and to add a bit of variation, a bit of more detail, and make the whole thing look much more natural than it should be. You know, different shapes and play around. And same goes for the tileable texture again. Exact same process as I did for the cliff texture. I just used the same small rock models that I created, the high poly models, and placed them in ZBrush and create a tileable texture for that. Some of these textures here that you might see are photo sourced textures. The soil texture is a photo sourced texture. The grass texture was made from scratch using Mudbox. I might do a tutorial for this. I actually discovered a really easy way of creating this kind of grass texture. It should take you about a minute or two to create something similar to this. I mean, really simple. You could just go in Maya, open up the visor, select grasses. We're here. You get a few tools here. You go to Windows, open up the paint effect window. Here, change the canvas to something square-like. Change the size to maybe 2048 to 24 by 2048. Hit apply. Close this and select good. Try out with these different brushes. I mean, let's see, grass clump for example, and you can very easily create your grass texture. I mean, it's not very complicated. Just be careful with the brush size. Sometimes it gets slower because it has to do some rendering. It renders out the lights, lighting and anti-aliasing, well, almost in real time. But I'm guessing that might crash here, so I'll have to close this up. Anyways, this step here, well, I'm just gonna have to reopen Maya and reset up the whole mesh, but this is for creating grass textures really fast if you want. I'm just gonna pause this here. We'll be back. Maybe I think we'll be back in another video part because it is almost 2 hours here of recording and it's gonna take a while to upload. So I'll see you guys in the next part. We're going to set up LODs for the mesh and set this mesh also to be exported for UDK. Alright, thank you for watching.